Hey everybody, Lance Martin, Coldwell Banker, Town and Country. We are here for round 3, our 2020 real estate market forecast. We're with John Husing. He's going to be taking us home. We've already shot Chris Thornburg. Most of you have already seen that, of course. Manford Kyle. And now again, John Husing with economics and politics to bring us home. So before I actually formally introduce John and bring him on, I do also want to thank our sponsors, Homebridge Mortgage and Back Porch Homes. We couldn't have done it without them, as we've been saying the whole way through. So, at any rate, here we are, almost done. So, John, are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
You're up, my friend. Take it away.
Lance, thank you. Well, since we're all locked in our houses, this may be the easiest way to have some idea what's going to be occurring with our economy. And that's what I'm going to be taking a look at. If you look at the chart, you can see there's an arrow blinking aimed at fear. This is the business cycle. And we've now descended into part of the really scary part of what's going on with the business cycle. So I thought I'd start out and talk about what I was forecasting as early as, or as recently as January, and then we'll see what's happened to that as we go along. What you see here is confession. When I say confession, what I like to do is say, all right, a year ago, what did I say I was going to say? Or what did I forecast? And then what really happened? What I forecast was 38,200 jobs, 2.5% growth, an unemployment rate of 4.2. What actually happened in 2019? Well, I was a little strong. It came in at 35.7, so pretty close. Growth rate of 2.3. Unemployment rate actually a little better than that, which that part I like. Now, if we look at what all of that meant to the economy, you see here a bunch of blue bars. Those blue bars, each one of them is how much employment either went up or went down during the course of a particular year. You can see 3 red bars. We lost 140,000 jobs in that period of time, the Great Recession. Then you see a whole series of blue jobs growth as we're coming back. Altogether, we've come back adding 390,000 jobs, which is pretty sensational. Actually, it leads California in terms of job growth in that period. It put us 250,000 jobs over where we were in '07 before the recession, or 19.1% higher. US didn't come close to that. California didn't come close to that. So the Inland Empire has been a growth engine going into this situation we now face because of COVID-19. Now, one of the important facts, for quite a while, the Inland Empire has been dealing with the problem of poverty. You can see on this chart, this is for 2018. It's the most recent data we have available to us. 2016, 23.5% of children under 18 were living in poverty. As the economy grew, those numbers dove. So it went to 19.3 in 2017, and the most recent number, 19.1. You can see also on here other areas of the state of California. Only the Central Valley the Central Valley and Los Angeles both performed poorer than we did. The rest of the state did better. If we look at all people, we started out in 2016, 16.4% of the public was in poverty, including the children, the parents, etc. That dropped to 14.5% in 2017 and ended up at 13.7% in 2018. So the message here is as the economy has grown, poverty levels have dropped. You would expect that to happen, and I'm happy to reveal that, in fact, it did happen. Now, we have dangers facing this economy. And so The first one I want to look at is the U.S. economy itself. As we go into 2020, one of the things we see is the gross domestic product has not been growing very fast. It's been growing at just slightly over 2% the last 3 quarters of 19. That is not strong growth for the country. The second issue that we have in California is the fact that we've been hollowing out middle-class jobs. We'd be creating high-end jobs. You see on the chart in red, 28.3% of all the state's jobs paying over $65,000, very good. A lot of that concentrated in places like Silicon Valley. Then you see in yellow a lot of low-end jobs paying basically $32,500 and below. Now, when we look at middle-class jobs paying, say, $45,000 on up to $62,500, you can see 9.6% in the green, and now those are jobs that are office level jobs or teaching, and then you have 21.7, which are blue collar jobs in the Inland Empire. That's logistics, it's construction, and it's manufacturing. Unfortunately, those pieces of the pie in this state are shrinking, which means, as we've all heard, the middle class is not being helped by what's going on. By the way, I would add, this is not an accident. This is state policy. State of California, the kinds of issues that it decided at the legislative level to specialize in really have the extent of putting blue collar and white collar modest income people out of work, or at least not adding jobs, which is not good. Why? 2 reasons why the state of California is really hurt, particularly blue collar jobs, which are the kind that the Inland Empire really needs. One is regulation. We've put an awful lot of regulation in the way of blue collar companies, manufacturers, distribution and transportation, construction. And the other is our energy policies, and the energy policies have raised costs for those same sectors in a way that has hurt them. Moving on then, one of the things that we see when we look at the economy, and this chart really shows it, this is the share of the public in each marketplace of Southern California who can afford the homes in their county or their market. So Inland Empire, 44%. What's that mean? It means 56% can't afford the middle-priced house. Perfect would be 50-50. If we go on over to San Diego County, 29% can, 71% of the residents of that county and households can't afford about half their houses. If we go to Orange County and LA County, it's down to 25%. So really what we're having here is unaffordability in the housing markets, and those are really hurting us. As I said, 56% can't here in the Inland Empire, 71% can't in San Diego, and 75% can't afford the bottom half of houses. So this is a market that's in trouble because really very high prices. Why? The California Environmental Quality Act. The California Environmental Quality Act sets up the ability of NIMBYs, not in my backyard, folks who don't want to see things built around them, to be able to use the terms of that act to stop construction. You stop construction, you limit supply, supply and demand, less supply, prices are going to take off. Not an accident. This is the state legislature, unfortunately, in action. Now, another issue that we face in the state is California electrical costs. You have a bunch of blue bars here, and on them are numbers like 713 in Colorado, down at the bottom 444 in Washington. That is the cents per kilowatt hour that electricity costs in states around California. Now let's put in California. Way out here at 1265. So what? What it means is if I'm a company, let's say I have a friend that has a company in South Carolina that makes propellers for boats. Huge market in California. He's in South Carolina. I talked to him one day and said, why don't you open a branch in California of manufacturing? So let's say he gets on the road, drives in this direction, stops off in Phoenix, talks to the economic development people there. What's he find out? Electrical costs in California, and he uses a lot of electricity as a manufacturer, 98.3% higher than it is in Arizona. All right, he doesn't like that. He heads up to Las Vegas, finds out 140% higher is California to Las Vegas. If he's going to put a plant, it's going to be near California, not in this state. Who does that hurt? It hurts workers here who would like the manufacturing jobs that someone like him could bring to the state, and nobody's doing it. In fact, some companies are in fact leaving. Then the other issue that's in the way of the Inland Empire economy is our educational abilities, our educational qualifications. 46.3%. That's the share of our population that stopped their educations in high school, went no farther. So nearly 1 out of every 2 workers. That dictates a blue-collar type economy to put them to work. It was 45.7 in 2017. This is the 2018 number. It got worse, not better. This is not what we're looking for. Then if we look at the reverse, what takes place when we look at Associate of Arts degree, junior college, on through bachelor's and higher degrees, our particular area, 30.2% of the adult population. Who are we competing with? LA, where it's almost 10% higher. Or in the south coastal counties, which is San Diego, Orange, Ventura, and Santa Barbara, where it's 46%. That's why high-end companies really don't tend to migrate here, much as we would like them to do so, because we don't have the labor force that they need. It was 29.8. It's up to 30.2. It is moving up. We're spending a lot of time trying to move these numbers up. The problem is, this is trench warfare. This is not the ability to really do something fast. It just takes years to alter those kind of demographics. Now, if we look at what I had forecast for 2020, I forecast we would create 28,150 jobs. When did I do that? In January. In January, COVID-19, the coronavirus, wasn't something that we were really examining. And so you notice these numbers are coming down. The growth was slowing in the Inland Empire, but still very, very strong, which was good news. However, now we have the coronavirus. COVID-19 has hit San Bernardino County, 54 people diagnosed, 2 deaths. It's hit Riverside County worse, 107 people and 8 deaths. Most of that, by the way, in the Coachella Valley. So now this is an issue. Now we are staying home, staying away from each other, closing companies, closing restaurants, hair salons. I'm a weightlifter. Can't train at the gym right now. So I'm going to pot the process. Now, What do we now know? Well, first of all, California in the last 2 weeks, 1 million people have applied for unemployment. Are we going to have a recession? It's not we're going to have, we're already in one. That's what that number means. Second, you've got the House now about to act, as I sit here talking, hopefully tomorrow, on that $2 trillion economic package. That'll be very helpful. Hopefully will get us back to work relatively soon, but this is going to take some time for this COVID-19 to work its way through the population in the state. Now, what sectors, given this change in circumstance, where we've closed so much down and basically told people stay home, what sectors should we look at? Well, this shows you all the sectors with all the employment in them in the state of California. The largest, distribution and transportation, also called logistics. Incredibly important sector. Between 2011 and 2019, which is the start of the recovery till last year, it was responsible for 24.6% of all our direct job growth. Second, retail trade is the second largest. And this is a sector that's in trouble now because of shutting down stores, also because of e-commerce. It was only responsible for 6.6% of job growth, despite being the second largest sector. Then there is healthcare, 147,000 jobs in that sector, 11.1% of our job growth in the recovery, number 4 in terms of ranking in that respect, number 3 overall in size. Then you've got K through 12 education. Our population keeps growing. We still have more and more children, so we need more teachers. It's up 6.9% from 2011 to 2019. Not fast, but an important sector nonetheless. Then we have eating and drinking. This is one of the things we've sort of shut down. You can't really go to a restaurant, sit down, go to a bar, have a drink in order to get over the depression of watching television, at least watching news conferences. Number 3 in growth overall, 11.2%. Very strong sector, not a good paying sector, as we'll see later. Construction, 11.8. Number 2 in overall growth from 2011 to 2017. You can see it's down the list, though, in terms of overall size. Manufacturing is one we tend to think about a lot, but it's a sector that's not growing very much in the Inland Empire. Thank you, state legislature. They put the rules in place that have basically said to manufacturers, you don't want to be in California. I showed you the cost of electricity just as one example of that. Then we have a sector we love to see growing, management and professions, but it's only up 0.9%. Because from 2011 to 2019, 51,000 some odd jobs, almost 60,000. But again, this is the problem of the educational makeup of our area. Then there's the financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, real estate firms. Again, very slow growth, only 0.9%. And then lastly, and I put these in here to look at because they're two sectors that are almost evaporating right now, and that is amusement and travel or hotels. 2.2% of growth, but relatively small sectors. Now, what I want to do is look at each one of these and see, all right, what did I originally forecast? And what has in fact happened to now that what did I forecast, what happened last year, and then how am I having to change the forecast this year because of the coronavirus. Now, 28,150, that was the forecast, and 1.8% was what I said in January. Now, let's go through, because that forecast, might as well throw it in the trash. So moving ahead. We've got a slowdown coming in some specific sectors. First of all, let's talk about our most important job creator, logistics and distribution, trucking, warehousing, that sort of stuff. You see all the big buildings in the Inland Empire, that's what this is. This is a pretty good paying sector. 49,109 is the median. That means half the people working in this sector make more, half make less. The middle number is 49,109. People tend to think that's way unreasonably high. It is not, because if you say, look at an Amazon facility, they have tiers of management that people can go up. They make more money. So you've got people that are working at the lowest level. They're in teams with a team captain. Then you have over the team captains, captains of team captains, etc. You also have truck drivers that make pretty darn good money. So that's 49.1. Now, what drives this sector? What causes it? Well, if you were in an audience, if you're sitting in your front room, and I ask you, raise your hand if you didn't buy something online in the last week, I would suspect almost nobody watching this would raise their hand. Why? Because that's what we do, and now that we're being locked out of everything, we're doing it even more. It was only 0.6% of all retail sales. It's now up to 11.4% of all sales. So it's a major driver of our economy now. And most recently, what we're seeing is 16.7% growth in the fourth quarter in this particular sector over the previous year, fourth quarter to fourth quarter. And you will notice this line is practically straight. That line is saying it's growing that fast every 4-quarter period, which, how would you like your 401k to be an automatic pilot, particularly after the markets last week, growing at 15 to 16, almost 17%. That's what's occurring. Very strong. Now, that's one driver. There are two. Again, one of the fun things I like to do in my speeches when I talk to folks is say, all right, look at the labels in your clothing. And you are now required to take off everything that wasn't made in America. I laughingly say we'd all end up in jail for nudity because nothing that you're wearing, just about, is made in the United States. It's imported. So this is a chart of imports coming into the ports of LA and Long Beach, which are 37.5% of all imported goods entering the U.S. come in through one of those two ports, which are really right next to each other. Now you see it peaked at 9 million, what we call 20-foot equivalent containers. If you go look at a train, have these long containers, that's 2 20-foot equivalent containers. Back in the old days, they were only 20 feet, now they're 40. Well, it went from 9 million, then it went down to 8.5, and starting 2020, it's down to only looking like 7.5 million containers this year. So it looks like the trajectory of the Great Depression, a recession, you saw earlier over there. By the way, you see this arrow showing it declining. The other thing that's happening, in February alone, it dropped 20.4%, the container volume of imports. The directors of the two harbors are really scared because this means the revenues that drive those ports are starting to dry up in a hurry. Now, the hope is with China starting to come back online, this may pick up at the ports. We don't know yet. Now, in the Inland Empire, there's a hell of a lot of space in great big buildings. And in the 4 quarters ended in December, 19.8 million square feet of that space was taken off the market by new companies migrating here, opening for business, and hiring people. This is the region logistics and distribution is such a huge part of our economy. Now, what you see here is what I did last year. I had forecasted in March a year ago that this sector would add 9,000 jobs. It didn't. It added 11,200, so I underestimated. Now, what am I forecasting now? Well, in January, I forecasted the sector would add 6,000, continuing to slow a bit, in part because we're running out of space. Now, why did I say it would slow down? We're running out of land to build the big facilities. If you look around, there's not a lot left outside of Moreno Valley, Paris, and then the deserts. Port volumes declining, and they were starting to decline before this. That's why I said 6,000 last year. E-commerce continues to be powerful, but then COVID-19 jumps in. Because of that, I have a new forecast. I've lowered it to 4,000 from 6,000. Still positive, because this sector, particularly the effect of e-commerce running through companies like Amazon and some of the others. So that's that particular sector. Moving on then to healthcare. Healthcare is a good paying sector, 65,757. That's great. We'd like to see a lot of new jobs there. 2 things are driving it. Number 1 is the Affordable Care Act. We went from 877,000 people with no health insurance down to 382,000 by 2018. So it went from 20.5, which isn't circled, to 8.4. That's a 56.5% drop. Now, the one caveat here is you see a bump up. Now, why? 1, because Congress is constantly beating up on the Affordable Care Act, as has been the president. So that's been a major problem. Number 2 is the courts. And there's a Supreme Court case looking at whether this should be, in fact, abandoned as a strategy. We'll see what happens with that one. But be as it may, 2 things occur. People's standard of living is better because they have health insurance. And in addition to that, jobs are created in healthcare as a consequence of this chart. Now, the second thing is, how many people does each healthcare worker in the Inland Empire take care of compared to what's going on in the state as a whole? In the state as a whole, it's 25.4. Here, the Inland Empire, it's 31.2. 31.2 is 22.8% more people for each healthcare worker. We're understaffed. And one of the things, that's another reason why this sector has been growing as we've tried to catch up continuously. Now, I had forecasted the sector would add 4,800 jobs in 2019. In fact, it expanded and brought in 5,600 more jobs. Great, given that they're good paying jobs. Now, the forecast for this year originally was 4,500 because we're having trouble. First of all, COVID-19 is affecting it. But we have a shortage of trained workers. But we do have a stimulus package for hospitals. So what's the new forecast? 7,000. So I'm giving you good news in these first two sectors I'm looking at. Logistics and distribution is growing, and the healthcare sector obviously is growing, and we need it to. I have a good friend as a doctor, and he's retired. Not anymore. They've called up and said, we need you. And so he's going to be doing things that he didn't plan on. Now, third sector, important sector for us, construction. First and foremost, a lot of this is good paying work, 52,462 the median, half above, half below. A lot of this construction is in big buildings. This is a construction of industrial space going on. 19 million square feet were being built on December 31st. So the sector is seeing a lot of construction, and it's in the Inland Empire. 65.9% of all the construction of big buildings in Southern California. Who's second? Honestly, who cares? The fact of the matter is, it's LA, but it's a fraction, a third of what's being done here. A lot of jobs there. A lot of jobs also in infrastructure to be able to move us around. So that's another kind of construction. Some of it is residential, but not a great deal. We'll look at that in a minute. What about space available? 4%. You notice it jumped up a little bit. Some buildings were completed and didn't immediately fill. This is a little bit of a worry, probably because of what occurred at the ports, not what is occurring with e-commerce. Now, residential is crucial to construction, particularly long term. We see here in the blue lines is what happened to the price of new homes. It peaked at $437,200 before the recession. Now it's at $457,348 as of the fourth quarter. So it's higher by 4.6% than it was before the Great Recession. So new homes have recovered completely in terms of price. The red lines are existing homes. Both cases, you see the big drop going from a peak of 389.9 down to only 155. But now it's come back to 370. It's only 5.1% from the peak. Housing is back to being really expensive. Now, what isn't happening is sales aren't really taking off. You look at this straight line here that I'm circling, and what you see is sales aren't growing. They're in a very narrow range between about 14,000 and about 16,000 units. Most recent number was 16,448. These are seasonally adjusted numbers, which means seasonality is taken out of here. Summer, winter, spring, fall, that's been taken out of the numbers. So they're comparable quarter to quarter. Now, the other thing that's important about the Inland Empire, and one of the reasons that we keep growing, is this chart, which I've been using since 1988. What it shows is the price in the inland counties, as well as the three main coastal counties. San Bernardino, 352. Riverside, 411. That's the prices in the two inland counties. Then you've got San Diego way up at 432, LA at 650, and Orange at 812,000. These yellow bars at the bottom here show what you save if you leave those three counties and migrate inland. Compared to San Bernardino County, you save between 280 compared to San Diego and 460 compared to Orange County. In terms of Riverside County, you save 221 on up to 401. So substantial savings to migrate inland. What this has done is it causes people to migrate inland, frankly, whether they want to or not. Because if you're going to live someplace, you really can't afford those coastal county prices. We see the same thing when we look at rents. This is average rental levels, 1562 in the Inland Empire, which isn't cheap, but 1995 in San Diego, 2147 in Orange, and 2290 in LA. Again, renters being forced to migrate inland. However, the rents in the Inland Empire rise faster, the blue bars, 5% increase here, 3-something in the other counties. And in terms of what's occurring with vacancy, there's very little anywhere, around 3%. Now, what about this sector? I had forecasted it would create 6,000 jobs. Why? Well, if you look at the previous quarters to 2019, it was doing really, really well, and then it just stopped and only added 700, so I was way off. Now, what are we seeing here? This year, I forecasted no growth, 0. Why? A difficulty in permitting lots. You have a lot of NIMBYs trying to stop stuff. CEQA rules being used to do so. You have very high prices, a very low supply. And then there's a shortage of construction workers. You go find a person that's building, and one of the things you will find out is they can't find enough workers for their projects. What's the new forecast? I didn't change it. I don't think COVID-19 affects the construction sector like it is a lot of the others. So I left it where it was. Similarly, when we look at finance, insurance, and real estate, which are related particularly to the housing market, I had forecasted 1,200. It lost 1,200. Why? Because real estate firms, banks, escrow, title shrank in 2019. The forecast this year is to lose 500, was my estimate of what was going to happen. Why did I say that? Because of high prices, lack of homes for sale, and the banks cutting back. Pretty much the same stuff that affects construction. What do I do with the forecast? Again, I don't think this is affected by COVID-19. I think residential is going to recover the way that it was doing prior to us going in, but I still think we'll see a little bit of contraction. Now, then we have retail, trade, and consumer services. This is things like hair salons, retail outlets, the shopping that we're all doing. Well, the shopping we were doing that's not online but in stores. Now, what do we see here? I had forecasted we would lose 2,275 jobs. What happened? We lost 3,350 in 2019. So I was depressing, but it was actually worse off than I thought it would be. This is e-commerce in action, affecting these sectors. What did I forecast would happen to them? I said they're going to add 500 jobs. Why? Well, e-commerce attacks in-store sales. There's a lack of available workers. People are driving trucks. But then we get COVID-19. So what's the new forecast? The new forecast is minus 33,500. Or I took it down 15%. Go to a store right now, you can't go there. Now, we're gonna come out of this. It's probably somewhere around 1 to 2 quarters and it'll spring back. But in the process, those bad months will be in the numbers. And then everything is not going to get back to quite where it was during the course of the year, I don't think. So I took it down 15%, though immediately it's going to be down a lot more than that if we look at the numbers for March, April, and probably May. Then there's eating and drinking. Eating and drinking, not a good paying sector, actually the worst paying sector of all. 26,801. It would take 3 people to working at that to be able to really get to a middle class income. A very large sector, one of the largest. Now, what's going on here? I'd forecasted 4,700 jobs. We got 4,500. I was pretty close to accurate. What we're seeing was I had thought this current year it would grow only 3,000 just because I think we're running out of workers. Well, why did I say that? Lack of available workers was the key here for slowing it down. Now, what has in fact happened is I'm now forecasting it'll lose 13,700. Why so many? I've taken it down also 15%. Why? 13,700 jobs peeled off. Well, you can't go to a restaurant right now. You can, at least to sit down, you can go to takeout. Some restaurants you can take out. Actually, the other day I got the opportunity to go take out from one of my favorite restaurants. Found out I could also take out a margarita, which made me double happy. But the fact is, as I left, they say, tell everybody you can come and get food here because they're struggling. And that's one of the reasons I took this down. Now, next, the high-end sectors. Folks that are working to figure out how to fix or get a stop to COVID-19. Engineers, lawyers, the high end of the economy. Median pay, 72,436. Great jobs. I had forecasted they would grow 1,100. They grew 13. Very modest growth. You'll notice historically they haven't been growing much. I had forecasted 1,200 for in the near term. Why? The education gap is the key reason for that. The new forecast, I kept it the same, didn't change it. I don't think this is affected by COVID-19. Now, moderate paying K through 12 jobs. K through 12 median pay is 65,457, 547. Good number. Now, what are we seeing here? Most important here is to talk about the growth of the Inland Empire. We are forecasted from 2018 through 2045 to add 1,000,000, almost 500,000 people in our 2 counties of the Inland Empire. How does that stack up? It's almost double Los Angeles County. And then if we add together San Diego, Orange, Ventura, and Imperial, it's 400,000 jobs, more than all those counties. So what we're looking at here is enormous growth in this area, which will take it from where it is now, which is 4.66 million, up to 6.1 million people. You think you have trouble getting around in this area now. Fast forward to 2045, I calculated I'd be I think 101. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that. Now, K through 12 education responds to those kind of numbers. What do you see? I had forecasted 3,400. We got 3,408. My forecast going ahead was for another 3,000. Why? The education gap to the coastal counties is putting a lot of pressure on us. And then we've got COVID-19 affecting the sector. I'm still got this at 3,000. Again, schools are closed now, but people are being paid, and I suspect, and we just passed, or tomorrow we'll pass a tax measure which will allow the staff at the schools to continue to go up. So I think that's the forecast before was a good one. Now, accommodation and amusement. This is hotels, snow skiing. Can you believe all the snow up in the San Bernardino Mountains? Nobody can use it. Going to the theater, going for theater, for movies, for plays, for orchestra, whatever. All that is shut down right now. I had forecasted it would add 700 last year and averaged 1,000. It did really well. I said this year, I thought it would only add about another 300. I was trying to be conservative. Why did I say that? That is a mistake. Ignore everything that's on there. Now, what did I forecast? Down 9,100. We aren't going to be traveling. And if we're not traveling, and we're not going to be congregating and going to the rock concerts in the Coachella Valley and all this sort of thing, I know my wife and I just are season tickets to the Los Angeles Philharmonic. We just had to give them all back. Same with theater that we do in LA. All of that is pretty much shut down. So I cut it in half, losing 9,100 jobs. Now, if we put all this together, what do we find out? What we find out is I had forecasted 28,150 jobs. Negative 31,450 is what I'm now forecasting for this year. So instead of growing 1.8, I expect this to decline 2.0. Unemployment rate of 4.3. If those 31,450 people, if those are the only new unemployed, it'll take it up to 3.5. But unemployment also includes people who lose their jobs in the coastal counties. So it's probably going to go up to around 6.5% to 7% unemployment. When we look at all the months for the year, because remember, these are annual, it'll be really bad in March, April, probably May, and then it'll start to come back. Now, if these numbers in a PowerPoint would be of help to you, this is my website. I'm going to put this on there. I'm going to correct the one chart with the mistake in it, and you can download it and use it. And I hope that this has been of some help to you and helped you fill up some of the time when by now you're probably starting to see the walls close in on you. Have a good day. Be safe.